Welcome to our collaborative team call. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Beth Isbell, and Tate and I are so excited for tonight. I think I can speak for both of us when I say that that we're really excited for tonight. So the reason why I decided to reach out to Tate and ask him if he wanted to collaborate on this with me is because I actually kind of the concept that we're going to talk about tonight, the topic stems from a book that I just finished called The Power of One More by Ed Milet. You will hear us reference that probably multiple times tonight, but I actually learned about the book. Tate, I don't even know if you know this. I don't think I told you, but I saw you posted on your stories like right when you ordered it. And I was like, that's intriguing. So anyways, I watched like a YouTube video or listened to a podcast or something, and I immediately ordered the book and I just finished it. So I reached out to him and I was like, okay, I don't know if you've like touched this book yet or started it, but it's insane. And I think we need to do a team call on this. So hopefully you guys love tonight as much as we do. I have just like a couple announcement things that are kind of, company wide that I wanted to remind you guys about. And then Tate, if you have anything, you can throw those in there too, or team specific or whatever you want to do. And then we'll kind of jump into the content. So obvious things, right? Strawberry Lemonade Energize launched on Monday. The Lift More Sample workout dropped on Monday as well. Really awesome program. Tate and I have both been through the program. Tate was in the podcast for it, and I was in the test group. Really great program. Like literally can't say enough things about it. If you have questions about any of those things, be sure to check out your back office or reach out to one of us. Of course, we're always here for you guys. Last announcement that I have is that Summit is literally less than 2 weeks away, and I cannot contain my excitement. We have not had an in-person summit in like 3 years. And so excited for that. It is too late at this point to purchase a ticket online, but they do offer ticket, like you can buy a ticket there, I'm pretty sure. But if you haven't got your ticket yet, or if you have questions, or if you need lodging help or whatever, just reach out to your coach and we can kind of help you walk through that. Tate, do you have anything else you want to add for announcements?
No, I think you got it. That's good. I'm extremely excited for Summit as well. Indianapolis in 2019 was my very first one, and then I haven't got to go back since. So I'm just so excited to get to see a lot of our coaches there and meet you guys. I feel like we I've known Beth and Brett, I feel like, for years now, and we've still never actually met in person. So excited to meet so many people. I think it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Really excited. Okay, so let's jump into tonight's content. So like I mentioned, this concept around understanding the differences and the similarities and what they are, goals, standards, kind of started swirling around in my mind after I read this book called The Power of One More by Ed Milet. And specifically as it relates to us as coaches and our businesses, with Summit around the corner, we are days away from officially being halfway through 2022. Like, what has even happened, right? Time has like this weird way of the days feeling long, but like the months and things feeling short. And I think 2022 is like the epitome of that. For me, it is anyways. And so we really wanted to kind of bring this concept to you from the space of, okay, understanding what the difference is between goals and standards, so on and so forth, what it is, but then also how can we really focus on reflecting on the first half of this year, navigating Summit, right, to help us kind of transition into the second half of the year, and then really crushing the second half of this year from a different space than maybe we entered 2022 in, or even more specifically, how we're kind of wrapping up this first half, right? So that's kind of the approach that we wanted to kind of to take with this call. So let's kind of just jump right in. So like I said, PSA, the year is halfway over, right? Something that I have found to be really important in my business is whether it's, at the end of a quarter or halfway through the year, specifically at the end of the year, when we're like, doing our vision boards or thinking about goals for the next year, all of the things, something that I've really leaned into in my business and something that I found to be severely important, almost detrimental if I don't, is really reflecting on the action that I've been taking and the ways that it has or has not aligned with the goals that I had, right? Because that's kind of what it all boils down to, right? Like how am I showing up, and how is the action that I'm taking aligning with what I told myself I wanted? So for me, in order to really move forward and not just stay in this space of maybe feeling like I'm spinning my wheels or like I'm stuck. How many of you, let me see in the chat, how many of you have ever felt like you are stuck in your business? I'm like waiting for the chat to blow up. Where you may feel that way right now, right? Yeah. So for me, in order to really move forward, look at the chat blowing up. They won't blow up about recognition, but they're like, I am stuck. I love the transparency. I love it. We're all about being vulnerable here tonight, right? In order to really move through feeling stuck, for me, I have to reflect, right? So I love this little quote that I found that said, learning without reflection is a waste, right? And reflection without learning is dangerous. So for me, this kind of morphs itself into this idea of like, I'm going to be unable to move forward if I'm not learning from how I've been showing up, right? If I'm not reflecting on, what I've been walking through. So that's what I want you to do. And I would love for you guys to like continue this transparency moment. And yeah, stuck and stagnant is totally the same thing, Sarah. For me, it is anyways. I would love to kind of continue this transparency and this conversation in the chat on, I want you to really think through and reflect on the first half of this year. Now, if you're a newer coach, then put this into perspective for yourself, right? Like maybe you've been a coach for just a couple weeks or a couple months. But if you've been here for a while, I want you to think back to just like the entirety of the first half of the year. No strings attached, no judgment here, right? Just facts. I want you to share with us in the chat how the action that you have or have not taken, right? How the way that you have shown up in your business, in your life, how it has or has not aligned with the goals that you had. So maybe like share with us a goal that you had, how you have shown up to kind of make it happen, or maybe how you haven't, and then maybe what that's resulted in or what that hasn't resulted in. I'm going to wait just a couple minutes or just a couple seconds because I want us to like really pay attention to these. I think that there's a lot of power in this business specifically and knowing that you're not alone, right? With the way that you feel, with the things that you maybe feel stuck on, the things that you feel you're struggling through, challenges that you're facing. We don't want to sit in that space. We don't want to feel stuck or stagnant, right? We want to be able to move through them. And sometimes just knowing that you're facing a challenge that, although very hard to overcome, it's still normal, right? It's just a normal piece of this business, of the work that we do. So let's see if anybody wants to share with us in the chat. I took a huge risk, was miserable at my full-time job. I quit because it was not aligned with my values. Wow, that's amazing. Good for you. That takes a lot of bravery right there. Good for you, Miriam. Okay, anybody else? I'll wait for one or two more. And even if you're not feeling like you're in the space to maybe share, I want you to at least be thinking through some of these things because it will really help you apply what we're going to talk through tonight. I had a goal of hitting diamond by June. I did really good the first couple months of the year, then life happened and I let it paralyze me from taking action. Now I feel like I'm too far gone. How many of you have ever felt like you're too far off track, whether it be in your own health and fitness journey or in your business? I think we can all raise our hands to that one. Okay, I'll keep a watch on that so that we can move on. Here's what I need you to do. Whether you shared with us or whether you didn't, I know that there's some thoughts going on up there, right? I need you to bless and release them, right? I need you to be intentional and deliberate about reflecting on them and walking through those limiting beliefs or the action that you didn't take or the way that you did not show up. And I need you to just bless it and release it because tonight we are going to walk you through how to essentially set goals from a different space, right? We're going to focus on raising our standards so that the action we're taking aligns with what we're telling ourselves we want, which is what a goal is, right? A goal is essentially a thought around what it is that we're telling ourselves we want. And then we're going to focus on how to craft a new identity that aligns with those standards so that the goals that you then set for yourself are truly non-negotiables. Right? Even if the path to accomplishing them looks a little different than you intended. And even if I know, like, I feel like Tate and I can raise both of our hands to this when we say that there is an unlimited number of goals that we have set in our businesses that either didn't happen quite when we thought or wanted it to happen. Lots of them still haven't happened yet, right? But we still show up every single day and we know, and it's because we know that they will happen, right? Because of our elevated standards. And that's what we want to walk you through tonight, so that you can truly go into the second half of 2022 with a vision so crystal clear on what you want your business and your life to look like, and with an unwavering, unmatched belief in yourself and in your ability to make it happen, because you understand who it is that you need to be, right? Your identity that needs to align with what you're willing to accept from yourself, your standards. Let me pass it over to Tate.
I had to take my headphones out. Can you guys still hear me okay? Okay, good. All right, let's see. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about goals versus standards. And like Beth was talking about, and I'll be a little bit vulnerable here too, I feel like the first half of this year for me has honestly been a bit of a struggle as well. I feel like I let a lot of outside circumstances or things that I really couldn't, things that I really didn't have a lot of control over impact me mentally. And even though I was showing up doing the things, I wasn't really showing up with the right passion or intentionality, or if that makes sense. So just know, guys, that like it happens to all of us, and that every single person in this business or in any business is going to go through ups and downs and different challenges, and you're just going to have to overcome those and keep working through them. But I was so excited when Beth reached out about doing this call, because number one, I enjoy doing collaborations with someone like Beth. I feel like she's someone who really pushes me to be my best, and kind of been somebody that I've followed along my journey of like kind of that person, like I'm striving to catch her, like it's good. It's a healthy kind of like competition. Like, hey, how can I be more like what they are doing? How can I get better? And so it was cool to be able to collaborate with her again on this. And then like she talked about with just discussing Ed Milet stuff, like he is completely, like he's right up my alley. I listen to his podcasts and stuff all the time. So when she mentioned it, like even this topic, I was like, even though I hadn't even read that part of the book yet, I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. So yes, I'm all for it. And really, I hadn't heard this mentioned a lot, or really thought about like the difference between a goal and a standard before hearing him talk about these things. And this was so impactful to me over the last few weeks, and it's been a game changer for me already. Like I can feel the energy just by shifting my focus into raising my standards versus thinking about goals all the time. Because guys, really at the end of the day, a goal is just a thought. Like a goal is just like, I want to be a diamond coach, I want to be a great parent, I want to be the greatest of all time. Like that's really like all that a goal is. It's just simply just a thought. Okay. But a standard, however, is the level of action that you plan on taking to reach that goal. Okay. So like if my goal is here, if I want to be a diamond coach, like that's my goal, then I have to raise my standard to be equal to that. Like I have to put in the type of action that it takes to actually become a diamond coach. Okay. So I'm going to use a quick little like sports analogy for you guys, because that's my background. That's what I love. So most of you have probably heard of Kobe Bryant. If you haven't, I don't know where you've been living, but the late great Kobe Bryant. Kind of a quick backstory on him. He has always been known as like, or he always wanted to be known as the greatest player of all time, the greatest player to ever play in the NBA. And we now know that he's right up there, with Michael Jordan. He's up there close to it. But anyway, as he was working through his career, if you guys don't know much about the NBA, the typical NBA player works out 2 times a day. Okay, so they have one morning workout and one workout in the afternoon. Okay, so Kobe thought, if I'm going to be the greatest player to ever play the game, I'm going to have to raise my standard higher than what everyone else is doing. Like I'm going to have to figure out, like if everybody else is doing 2 workouts, what can I do to up my game and to be better than them? Okay, so Kobe decided he was going to do 3 workouts a day, starting at 4 a.m. in the morning. Every single morning, he was going to go in at 4 a.m. And I know this sounds a little bit extreme, and I'm not asking you to get up at 4 a.m. and start your workday, I promise. But what I'm saying is, when you make that goal, when you make if your goal is to be the greatest of all time, you have to determine what standard it's going to take to actually get there. And so Kobe knew that if he worked out 3 times a day over the span of 1 year, that meant he would have gotten in 365 more workouts a year. That can be translated over to this business as well. Think if you send out 3 invites a day. Say the normal person sends out 1 invite a day, but you send out 3. How many more invites are you sending out in a month than that one person? And then span that over the course of a year. Span that over the course of however many years Beth's been a coach, like 6 years. I'm not sure, but like think about that. And in Kobe's case, he played in the NBA for 20 years. And even when he was already the GOAT, like even when he was already the best player in the league, he still kept working out at that rate because he knew nobody would ever catch him. And that's what I mean when I say, like, if you want to set your, if you've got a goal that is to get here, you've got to set your standard to be in alignment with that. And then a quick story, just kind of from my own personal journey with coaching. I started this business in the first month. I hit Success Club 10. To be honest, I really didn't even know what I was doing. Just started taking a lot of action, hit the goal, and my coach was like, "Hey, this is what you need to strive for every single month." So I made that my goal. Like I was going to hit Success Club 10 every single month because according to what everybody else had said, everything I'd read, everything I'd studied about this business, Success Club 10 was something that I needed to hit in order to build my team to the level that I wanted to achieve, for myself. I wanted to build a big business, a successful business, and I knew that that's what I needed to do. So I set the standard that I needed to fill out my daily business activity tracker every single day. I had to do the post, I had to do the invites, I had to do my workouts, I had to drink my Shakeology, all the things, right? Like not hard things to do, actually pretty simple things to do. I just had to do them. And I knew that if I would do those on a daily basis, that would give me the best chance to succeed and that the goal would kind of take care of itself. Okay. So today marks the end of 40 months as me being a coach. Today marks 40 months straight and being in Success Club 10. And that's not me bragging on myself at all. That's just trying to show you that when you raise your standard to the level of your goals are going to take care of themselves. So in saying that, if you don't change your standard, then your goals are pretty irrelevant. And that's an Ed Milet quote. And let me repeat that. Let that sink in for just a second. If you do not change your standard, then your goals are basically irrelevant because they're just a thought. Like if you're not willing to put in the work, if you're not willing to take the action that is required to reach that goal, then your goal is completely irrelevant. And I'm not trying to be like really negative here or anything, a Debbie Downer on this call. I'm just trying to keep it 100% real with you. If you want to, whatever your goal is for yourself in this business, figure out the standard, take a step back, realize what it is that you need to do, and then do those things. And just please promise me this. Don't settle for anything less than you deserve. And I'm not trying to close out the call by any means, but like you are worthy of success at the highest level. And if you believe that and you have faith and you're taking that proper action, you can make that a reality. And so guys, just please remember that. And as we continue with this call, like just remember that that's like the difference between a goal and a standard. And then start asking yourself, like, how do I need to change my standards in order to reach my goals? So I'll throw it back over to you, Beth.
Yeah, I love that. And something that you said, Tate, made me think of like when you were talking about how you set the standard for yourself to like Success Club 10, like that is what I know successful coaches do. So that is just what I'm going to do kind of a thing. And you said, so I did my tracker every single day. And I know my team probably like, whenever I say the word business activity tracker, they're like, whatever, like there's gotta be some secret I'm not telling them, but that is the secret, right? And you made a comment and you said, it's not hard things, right? It's just doing those things consistently. It reminds me of something that Julie Boris, for those of you that know who she is, she's incredible. Something that she always says is it's just what does she say? The TNTs, the things that take no talent. That is so true. Like the things that grow this business take no talent. They just take you not accepting less of what you know you're capable of, right? Which is kind of what Tate just talked about. So we're going to kind of transition into like the meat of the call, if you will. But I wanted to kind of segue with this because this is something else that Ed Milet talks about in his book. He says, you won't always get your goals. How many times, we're all about transparency tonight, right? How many times have you set a goal of diamond or star diamond or an income goal? How many times have you set the same goal over and over and over again, just to keep setting that same goal over and over and over again? Now, in lieu of transparency tonight, I have been, and I'm putting this in air quotes, okay? And I'm putting it in air quotes because my standard has not necessarily correlated to this goal up to this point in my life, right? I have been trying to hit 10-star since I went into 10-star qual the first time in May of 2020. How long ago is that? 25 months ago, to be exact, 2 years ago, right? We went into 10-star qual, we held for 4 weeks and we dropped it in the 5th week. And I have been trying to get it back since then. When really, when I'm approaching like that goal and I'm thinking through and I'm reflecting, right? We talked about reflection, and I'm reflecting on like how I've shown up, if I've shown up in a way that aligns with that truly being the standard, right? Like this, if I'm taking action from a space that aligns with what that goal truly takes, what I know that accomplishing that goal takes, it's just been a goal, right? So I want you to think about that. Like, how many times have you set the goal of, I'm going to hit Success Club, I'm going to hit Diamond, I'm going to hit Emerald, I'm going to, make $1,000 a week or whatever. How many times have you set that goal just to set it again and set it again? You won't always get your goals, but you will always get your standards. I promise you, if you implement what we teach you throughout the rest of the call tonight, if you implement it into your life and you elevate your standards, your goals are just byproducts of that. Think about like your health journey, right? Let's take business out of it for a second. Think about your health journey, because that's probably where most of our businesses started, or a lot of them. We know that if we have 20 pounds to lose, right, or 10 pounds to gain, that we can't just do one workout and drink one Recover shake and expect to wake up the next morning 10 pounds heavier, right? Or 10 pounds leaner or whatever, like, or with the 20 pounds gone. We know that if we show up every day, whether we do or do not, we know this, right? Whether we actually do it or do not, that's like another conversation. But we know that in order to lose the 20 pounds or gain the 10 pounds of muscle, we got to lift more for 8 weeks, right? I think I saw Tate's post, he gained like 7 or 8 pounds of muscle or something. That took 8 weeks of every single day at a really inconvenient time showing up to film that stinking workout, right? Like, it took him doing that every single day. That's what it takes. It takes consistency over time. Okay, so we're like preaching to you, okay, elevate your standards, raise your standards. You're not always going to get your goals, but you're going to get your standards. So now you're like, okay, tell me how. We want to walk you through 6 tips, 6 strategies on how you can truly raise your standards. Okay, so let's talk about the first one. The first one is reflect. Look back 60 to 90 days. This is something that Ed Milet talks about that, honestly, I feel like it's a concept I've applied and I've understood, but I haven't like really thought about it from this space. How many times, if you've been in the coaching world for more than a second, you've heard like the conversations that you have today pay off 6 months from now, right? We've all kind of heard that, but maybe you haven't like truly dove into what that meant. Right? We know that this is a relationship business, meaning we're asking people to navigate a really challenging, vulnerable journey with us. They have to trust us, and trust takes time to build. I've always thought about my business from that space, and I've understood that conversations I start, relationships that I start to build right now, pay off later. But the way that he just worded this concept to me just really spoke to me, right? So I want you to think about, if you feel like you're struggling or you're having a difficult time in your business right now, I want you to think back, look back to 60 to 90 days ago, because those behaviors, the behaviors that you were or were not implementing and taking 60 to 90 days ago, that is what is dictating where you're at right now. That behavior from 2-3 months ago is causing the maybe negative results that you're experiencing in your business right now. If you're not experiencing success in your business right now, just look back. What did your action look like? Are you listening to books and podcasts? Are you reading books that are serving you? Are you engaged in a program? Are you fueling your body? Are you growing in your identity and who you are? You pay the price of your behaviors of the action that you're taking 3 to 4 months later. Okay. And then he says something to the tune of like, continue to do the work now, because 90 days from now, 3 months from now, you're going to be reading today's news. Isn't that crazy? Like, that's so crazy to think about, right? And for me, honestly, it kind of helps like take the pressure off when I feel like I'm in a season of like, I'm like, how many times have we said like, I'm doing all the things, like when am I going to like reap the fruits of my labor kind of a thing, right? And you're just like in the trenches and you're like grinding and you're hustling and you really are not just, and Tate mentioned this earlier, he said like the first half of this year, like I was doing the things, but I wasn't like really doing the things. I always tell my team that there's a difference to me in like checking the boxes of my tracker. And this doesn't like really make sense, but hopefully you're like picking up what I'm putting down. There's a difference to me in just checking the boxes of my tracker and then like being the boxes on my tracker. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I can send 5 invites every day and I can add, 4 new people and I can throw my workout up in my challenge group. But that is very different than me like, texting my clients and checking in with them, or sharing a recipe, or going live in my group after my workout, or, like really focusing on finding my people on social media versus just throwing out random cold invites, right? It looks and feels very different. So when I'm in the trenches of feeling like I really am doing all the things, this really helps me kind of keep my blinders on to like, just keep doing it. It feels hard right now, because 60 to 90 days ago, you were just checking the boxes. So even though you're like being the boxes right now, you got to keep being them so that you can see that kind of come full circle and pay off.
Yes, absolutely. And I actually heard Ed Milet say this in one of his podcasts. He talked a little bit about like invisible progress, and I'm not going to get like too off topic here, but sometimes we go through that in our business too, of like, you're going to have up and down seasons, like I mentioned at the beginning. And it's important that even when you're going through a struggling time, that you still continue to show up even in that moment, because just putting in that action can help you you may not have the huge gains, but like you're still like able to stay where you are and have like that invisible progress, as he calls it, where maybe you don't see like the big thing on the other side of it, but at least you're not like falling down the hill either. So like those are all part of business, and you just have to remember to keep showing up even during those times. But the second tip, guys, is to choose the life you want and remind yourself why you're here. And I would just like to challenge you guys to take a second and put in the chat box, like, why are you here? Why are you doing this? Who are you doing this for? Is it for yourself? Is it for your family? Is it to build an income? And I'll wait just a second. I would love to hear or see or read some of your all's whys, because I know at the end of the day, just like I mentioned before I started on tip number 2, you're going to have days where you don't feel like showing up. And this will be the very thing that carries you through that day. It will be the very thing that you remind yourself of why you're here, and you decide to show up for those people, or for yourself, or for your health, or to be able to travel. Like, I love all of those things, to make a positive impact, to hold myself accountable, and to build income. Yeah, I mean, you guys see all these amazing things impact freedom of time, knowing God's purpose for you, become a healthier person, to grow as a person. Like, all these things are incredible. Husband and son are my biggest motivators and cheerleaders. Like, all these things are like so good, and so often, like, yeah, people going through hard seasons of life. Like, all these things are huge. Like, you guys are making such a big difference. And so often we take that for granted and don't remember like how good we are doing, how much good we're putting out in the world, and how we are helping other people. So that's something that you just have to constantly remind yourself of. And then, guys, you have to choose the life that you want, because what you're getting out of your life right now is exactly like what you believe you're worthy of. And remember that you need to choose the emotion that you want to experience. So yeah, guys, this is just something that you really need to remember those things, because I ask, I think, every single coach that starts on our team, and you guys know that are on our team, I'm going to ask you, what do you, that's going to be one of your first things. What do you want? When do you want it? And then like, what's your why? Like those are going to be your questions that I send to you. And those are things that you need to remind yourself of daily. I'll toss it back to you. Where am I still going on this one?
Okay, there we are. Okay, tip number 3. I love that. Take action and check in with yourself regularly. So this concept is something that I am real passionate about because I feel like it has been a total game changer for me, but it's also been a big insecurity of mine. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But I want to first talk about time. Time is relative. He gave a concept an example of this concept in one of his podcasts that I was listening to. Think about this, like 2 minutes with, like or let's think about a vacation, right? If you're spending, time with your family on the beach or whatever, like making memories, think of like a very joy-filled moment. 2 minutes in that moment, or even like your weekend beach trip or whatever, goes by quick, right? It's like, oh, vacation's already over. Or, those 30 minutes with my friends at dinner, like it's already over. But the last 2 minutes on like your mixed bike, it's a long 2 minutes. Can I get an amen? It's because when we're enjoying something, it feels short. And when something is painful, it feels long, right? The last couple seconds of cardio, the last couple minutes on your mixed bike versus, a couple minutes that you get to spend in good conversation with a friend at dinner or, a vacation or whatever. He talks about how like really reflecting on and asking yourself, do you want to press pause on your life? Or do you want to take action in a way that aligns with what you really do want? Like to stop worrying about what other people think about you, to get bold on social media, to invite. I always tell my team, like inviting is my favorite part of my business. I know as a new coach, it feels scary, but it's my favorite part of my business because I get to share this blessing and this opportunity, this obligation, right? I love it so much that I feel obligated to share it with other people. So I want to just encourage you to like really think about your life, bigger picture, as far as like time and relevance is concerned, and ask yourself, like, are you willing to take action through things that maybe feel uncomfortable so that you don't feel like your life is just dragging on, right? Now, this is really cool, right? The difference between a thought and a decision is action. Something is only a thought if you don't take action. So you have to decide what action you're going to take, right? To make progress towards whatever the goal is. We talked a couple minutes ago about how a goal is essentially just a thought and the standard is the action that we attach to it. So in order for these thoughts, these goals that we have, I want to help 3 people a month. I want to help 5 people a month. I want to hit diamond. I want to, whatever the case may be, fill in the blank with whatever your goals are. In order to do something with that thought, that goal, you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision. You have to act on it. This is the concept that I was mentioning at the top of this slide that I was really excited to talk about because it's something that's proved to be really powerful in my life. And this is self-awareness and self-accountability. So checking in with yourself, right? I call it like a pulse check. Once you make the decision to take action in a way that aligns with this elevated standard concept, right? So that your goals are just a byproduct of the way that you're showing up. Once you make that decision, you have to check in with yourself and you have to see how you're doing. You have to review your progress, look at your goals, review your standards. Are you willing to, question everything and change anything that needs to be changed? And by being honest with yourself. And that's not always easy, right? If things are kind of way off track, it's much less costly to you, right? And it's also a lot easier to catch it after 7 days versus 90 days. Think about this from the space of your nutrition. Think about this from the space of, I know somebody mentioned earlier at the beginning of the call, I think it was Sarah Weber, that she kind of feels like she's just like been off track for so long that it feels impossible to get back on track. It's not impossible. All you have to do is take ownership over recognizing that you don't like the way you're showing up or the way that you're not showing up because it doesn't align with what you told yourself you wanted. That's being self-aware, right? Something feels off. I don't like it. You're aware of the way that you feel. And we all know that we are biological humans, not logical humans, right? Which means we take action from an emotional space. So if you don't like the way that something feels, you're not going to take action in a way that aligns with the way that you want to feel, because you don't feel that way, right? So once you become self-aware about it and you recognize it, you have to take accountability over it. And you have to create the change by taking action.
Yes, and all that plays into tip number 4, in my opinion, perfectly, which is do not let your ego hold you back, and please forget perfection. This was like the number one thing when I first started in this business. I had been working through a program called Body Beast. Those of you who don't know my story, for 12 weeks. I fell in love with it. I wanted to pursue coaching, but like there was this thing that was just holding me back. And it was honestly like, it was fear of how other people would judge me. And that was my ego getting in the way. And I swear when I talked to my coach for the first time, like the first thing he said to me was like, one of the reasons that coaches can fail in this business is because they allow their ego to get in the way. And that just like straight up, just like smacked me right across the face. Like I was like, he's like, that's me. Like that's the very reason why I'm not doing this right now, is because I'm worried about what somebody else is going to think about me, what they're going to say about me, how they're going to judge me. And like I was sitting back going, all right, well, I'm 28 years old, I'm married, like what the heck do I even care about what anybody else thinks about me? And so that's when I made the decision to just like go all in, and I was going to take the actions, like Beth was just talking about, that I needed in order to build a successful business. And so you cannot let your ego get in the way, guys. And perfection, honestly, like that's the lowest standard out there. That's the lowest standard that there is. If you're out there trying to be perfect, and because it's your flaws that make you human and relatable. And like there are people out there that are going to connect with me and become part of my team because of who I am, for who I am. And there's people that are going to join Beth because of who she is. And like her people are her people and my people are my people. And the same goes for you. And so just remember that perfectionism is like, it literally is like the lowest standard out there. And you just have to let that go, because what perfectionism does is it forces inaction. And when you do that, it will paralyze you from taking any kind of action at all. And then we convince ourselves that we're in this like all or nothing mentality. And it's just an excuse not to give your days your very best. So just remember that, guys. Like I wish I had gotten over that fear earlier, but thankfully Beachbody helped me do that.
I love that. And I feel that like to my core, both of those things. It took me, I finished my first Beachbody program in March of 2016, and I didn't sign up to be a coach until July because I had to get over the fear of judgment piece. That was like a whole thing in itself, like what Tate talked about. But then I felt like I needed to know everything before I even signed up. Like that's totally me. I'm an Enneagram 3, and I'm like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it all. So I watched YouTube videos for like 3.5 months before I even signed up to become a coach, because I felt like I needed to know everything before I started taking action. And like Tate said, it is perfectionism and or the all or nothing mentality. To me, they're the same thing, right? Perfectionism is like, it has to be perfect or nothing. It has to be all or nothing. So whether you've struggled with that, like in your nutrition journey, your workout journey, or in your business or in any part of your life, like just recognize that it's just an excuse. You're just leveraging that as an excuse to not make daily deposits, which is all that we can do in this business, right? So tip number 5 is to write your story. There is a book, I want you to listen to this. There is a book being written about your life right now. Someone out there somewhere is taking inventory over your life. They're watching you. And I listened to this like max out talk that Ed Milet gave, and he said, this is like burned into my soul. I feel like the most insidious form of child neglect is a parent not pursuing their ultimate potential. Like what? Let that sink in for like a millisecond. Now, if you're not a parent, that's fine. But I want you to put this into perspective for yourself, right? Like you were created for a reason. You were put here for a reason with a purpose. When you don't pursue that, when you don't pursue your ultimate potential, you're not living out your purpose. right? Don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10. You're writing your story. And at any given moment, you get to turn the page and enter a new chapter that you get to keep writing. A comparison that I made was like Old story, Old Testament, New Testament. They're connected and related, but you get to move forward through them. You get to create the breakthrough. You get to write the best chapter of your life. I have a really quick example that I wanted to throw up here with, I had a call Tuesday night. So just like a couple nights ago with a group of my newer coaches, and we were working on, they were going to collaborate together to start their first bod group and all the things. And I was kind of walking them through like the whole process of like, okay, here's kind of the moving pieces of starting your first group. And here's kind of what we need to work through and decide and do and all the things. And one of them said, like, once we broke it down and we were done, she was like, gosh, she was like, I feel so much better. I just like sit back and I've been watching what you do. And I'm like, gosh, everything just looks so perfect and so great. Like there's no way I could ever do that. And I was like, whoa, I've been doing this for 6 years. You signed up 4 weeks ago, right? Like that's not fair to you. You don't deserve to do that to yourself. So whether you're like watching Tate on social media or me on social media, or you follow other coaches, or you know that somebody else on your team joined at the same time as you and they're like 10 steps ahead of you, whatever that means, right? You're defining that. They're like 10 steps ahead of you, or they've rank advanced, or they've, been able to do whatever and you haven't yet. So you start to like convince yourself that you're not cut out for this. Cut it out. Like you don't deserve that type of treatment. Okay. And then the last tip that we wanted to share with you guys is, and this probably to me is the most powerful one, right? You have to change your identity. Your identity is the thoughts, the concepts, the beliefs, the values that you hold to be true about yourself. And he talks about identity from the space of like comparing it to like a thermostat, right? A thermostat regulates temperature. So like if you're inside and the thermostat is set at 67 and you leave the door open and hot air starts coming in, the AC is going to kick on to cool the room down, right? To keep it at 67, and vice versa if it's heat and cold outside, whatever. So your identity essentially regulates the temperature of your life, meaning it doesn't matter what is going on out here. It doesn't matter what temperature it is outside. Your identity is going to regulate what you feel like you're truly capable of, right? So no external circumstances can control you. And I love that. I love walking through, I call it like a mindset model, a self-coaching model with a lot of coaches on my team, where like, if they feel like they're struggling with a specific feeling or inaction or result, it essentially walks you through like how circumstances are completely out of our control, but we're in full control over our thoughts that are attached to them, which then creates feelings that dictates how we show up, that then results in a specific outcome, right? Same is true here. When you are crystal clear on your identity and you decide what you're willing to accept from yourself, and that aligns with your identity, who you are, nothing can rock the boat, right? Not to say that like there aren't going to be hard and challenging moments, but you guys, I can promise you this, my business, and when I say like my business has thrived the most in my most challenging seasons of life. And when I say like my business has thrived the most in my most challenging seasons, I'm saying like I have thrived in my most challenging seasons because of the work that this business forces, because of the standard that I have attached to the goals that I have with my business that forces me to show up and do the things, to do the work on the tracker. I have been able to navigate severely challenging seasons of my life that I'm really not sure how I would have navigated otherwise. Okay. And I want to kind of wrap up this identity talk with really putting this in a perspective for you in a way that's maybe a little bit more applicable. So let's say that you have a customer or client, or if, whatever, however you want to kind of look at this through whatever lens you want to look at this through. You're like, I want to lose 50 pounds, but I've always been overweight. Or I want to build a big business on social media. I want to be a successful coach and I want to help as many people as possible on and through social media, but I've always been really introverted and shy. Do you think that just because you have a goal of losing 50 pounds or of building a business on social media, Do you think that that goal is going to be enough to force you to show up and take the action that you need to if your identity is rooted in being overweight or introverted and shy? No. I am, believe it or not, nobody believes me, but I'm here to tell you, I am severely introverted and I'm really shy. I'm not going to say severely shy, but I'm pretty shy, like in person. Like I don't make eye contact with people at the grocery store. That's like me. I'm just like in, out. I don't want to talk. I don't want to do the things. I need a lot of time to recharge after I'm around people, all the things. You're not going to show up and do the things that somebody who's not overweight does if your identity is rooted in being overweight. It doesn't matter how bad you tell yourself you want to lose 50 pounds, right? I want to lose 50 pounds, but I've always been overweight. Your identity is rooted in being overweight. So you're not going to ever do what it takes to not be overweight. Same is true with building a business on social media. You're not ever going to do what it takes to build a business on social media if you don't believe that who you are is capable of it. I also like to think of this from the space of like New Year's resolutions, right? How many times before you became a coach, of course, right? Before you became a coach, how many times did you like set a New Year's resolution and in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, it'd be really cool if I could do this. But if it doesn't happen, like it's not that big of a deal. Like I've gone this long without it, or I've gone this long with, whatever. So it's like you give yourself, you're convinced that you're going to fail because of the identity that you're rooted in. So you set the goal and then you give yourself an out before you even try. Right? We've all been there, right? We've all done that. This is no different. So as you're reflecting on, 2020 and you're thinking about what you want the second half of this year to look and feel like, don't just write down the same goals that you've been writing down. Instead, focus on what you're willing to accept from yourself. And I was watching, for those of you on Tate's team, or for any of my coaches that follow Tate, I was watching Tate's stories. I think it was yesterday, because it inspired me to talk about the same thing on my stories. Him and Peyton and Clay were like out all day from like 7 to 7. And then he got home and he still had coach work to do. And he was like, it would be much easier for me to just drink this shake and go to bed. But I have non-negotiables, so I'm here doing them. And whenever I was watching his stories, it was like, it was like almost 9 o'clock my time. And I had just sat down with my laptop to get a couple things done before I went to bed. And I was like, yes. And I think, until I really understood this concept of like standards versus goals and like whatever, I feel like, and I mentioned earlier that this tends to kind of be an insecurity of mine. It did, not anymore. I'm like, I'm done with that. But I've always kind of felt like I was just weird in that way, right? Like I'm just wired different than people. I don't know, but no, that's not it. I have worked really hard to get to a point in my life, in my business, where I'm just not willing to accept less for myself. That's it. I'm not like, there's nothing more special about me or Tate or anybody else that you look up to or you admire their work ethic or their consistency. It's just that they put in the work to not accept anything less of themselves. And when I was sitting there last night and I was like, the baby's probably going to wake up in about 2.5 hours, get your butt to bed. I was like, no, I got to get this done first. And then I was like, but why? Like, why am I that way? And then I watched Tate's stories and I was like, boom, that's it. That's why. It's this, like, this is it. It's because we're not willing to accept less than what we know we're capable of. So when you're thinking about the second half of 2022, I just want to encourage you to think about your goals from that space, not like just writing down frivolously all of these things that you think you're supposed to be doing. Like, okay, I know I'm supposed to be a diamond coach. Like, okay, I want to be a diamond coach, or I really want to quit my job. So I know I need to, make my coaching income $1,000 a week or whatever. But instead, like really think about the standards, the action that you're going to take, the action that you're going to attach to those thoughts, the goals that's going to force you to literally reshape who you are and the way that you do things. Okay. That was a little bit of a tangent. I'm gonna let Tate wrap us up, but I just kind of wanted to share that from that space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And I totally agree. I feel like, just like you said, I mean, like yesterday being gone from 7 to 7 and then coming in, sitting down, like I was literally just like sitting at my computer and you and I were chatting back and forth about setting this call up, like, and getting it right. And like, I was like, I'm really tired, but like, I'm not prepared for this call. I still need to do my invites and I haven't made a post yet. And I'm like, all right, I'm getting ready to do a talk about goals and standards. If I go to bed right now, like I'm totally just going to be just you know, that just can't happen. So like I had to sit down, I had to get my work done. But that's the kind of thoughts that go through my head on a daily basis too. It's not just like that happened last night. But guys, in wrapping this up, like you need to ask yourself, like, all right, you get real with yourself first. Like, where am I currently and where do I want to be? And stop reading the past chapters of your life and start getting ready to write the next one. Like you can start over completely tomorrow, like tonight. You can hop on your stories right after we get off this call and start taking action and gain momentum like right now. Like you don't have to wait 6 months. So guys, this call was so extremely exciting for me. It's something I'm so passionate about. And I want you guys to really, truly, when we hop off this call, to think about the goals that you have set for yourself, and then take a step back and try to think about the standard that it's going to take to get there. And if you don't know the standard that it's going to take to get there, reach out to your coach, reach out to me, reach out to Beth. I promise you, we're going to tell you the truth. Like if you have a goal to hit Success Club every single month, we will tell you this is the standard to hit Success Club every single month. And if that's what you truly want, then go for it. Like, don't settle for anything less than you deserve. And just like Beth was talking about earlier, like, I feel like when we don't chase after our passions, the things that are truly inside of us that we really want to do in life, you'll always, this is how it was before I started coaching. I always felt like something was missing. Like there was just, I was doing life, I was going through the motions, but there was like this thing that was calling me, like there's like, I know I'm meant for more. I know I'm meant for impact. I know I'm meant to use fitness and health. Like I was so passionate about it, but like I wasn't doing anything about it. And it always felt like something was missing. So I can tell you from like personal experience, I know what it feels like to not chase after something that you're super passionate about. So that's all I've got, guys.
Love it. This was so good. I would love to, anybody who wants to take a picture. So if your camera is off, I would love for you to